I'm Brooke Williams, 32 years old, and I just discovered my entire family went on the beach vacation I spent 6 months planning and paid $5,800 for, without me. The worst part? I found out when my sister accidentally added me to the family group chat filled with photos of them enjoying the sunset from the deck of the beach house I booked. When I called my mother in complete shock, she casually replied, "The whole family went last week. We didn't want the deposit to go to waste." 10 years of financially supporting my family, and this is how they repay me. Before I tell you how this betrayal unfolded, let me know where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe if you've ever felt taken for granted by the people you love most. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Michigan, where my parents Margaret and Richard Williams raised me and my 2 younger siblings, Heather and Brian. From the outside, we looked like the typical American family: modest 2-story home, yearly summer trips to the local lake, and holiday gatherings with extended family. But beneath that normal facade was a troubling dynamic that only became clear to me in adulthood. My parents never learned financial responsibility, and worse, they never taught it to us. Dad worked in sales at a furniture company, and his income fluctuated wildly. One month we'd be celebrating a big commission with a fancy dinner out, the next we'd be eating ramen noodles and mac and cheese because he hadn't closed any deals. Mom worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, but her income barely covered groceries. They lived paycheck to paycheck, maxed out credit cards, and occasionally borrowed from my grandparents to make ends meet. As the oldest child, I watched this pattern with growing anxiety. By 13, I understood our family finances better than my parents did. I'd hear them arguing at night about overdrawn accounts or missed payments. While other kids my age worried about school dances and sports teams, I worried about whether our electricity would get shut off. I got my first job at 15, working weekends at the local grocery store. Initially, I just wanted my own spending money so I wouldn't have to ask my parents for things I knew they couldn't afford. But within a few months, I was silently slipping $20 bills into Mom's wallet when I noticed she was stressed about money for school supplies or winter boots for my siblings. Heather, who's 4 years younger than me, grew up watching me handle responsibilities, which somehow translated to her believing she didn't need to. She's smart and creative but has never held a job longer than 8 months. She majored in art history, dropped out with 1 semester left, and has bounced between retail jobs ever since. At 28, she still asks our parents for money regularly, which often means they end up asking me. Brian, my brother who's now 26, followed a similar path. He's charming and popular but chronically irresponsible. He managed to finish college with a business degree, largely because I spent countless nights helping him with assignments and papers. He's always chasing the next big opportunity but never seems to find stable ground. His entrepreneurial ventures have included dropshipping, cryptocurrency trading, and most recently, trying to become a fitness influencer. None have yielded steady income. I took a different approach to life. I worked through high school, graduated with honors, and earned a partial scholarship to State University. I double majored in accounting and finance, working 30 hours a week at the campus bookstore to cover what my scholarship didn't. I graduated with minimal student loans and secured a position at a respectable accounting firm. Over the next decade, I climbed the career ladder methodically. Entry-level accountant to senior accountant, then to account manager. I now oversee a team of 5 and handle our firm's most important client relationships. I bought a modest condo at 28 and have built a solid retirement fund. I live comfortably but not extravagantly, partly because a significant portion of my discretionary income has gone to my family over the years. The pattern of financial support began during the 2008 recession. Dad lost his job when the furniture store closed, and they fell 3 months behind on their mortgage. I was only a junior in college, but I emptied my savings account to help them catch up on payments. I told myself it was a one-time emergency, but it established a precedent that would define our relationship for years to come. After college, the requests became more frequent. Mom needed dental work not covered by insurance, $2,000. Dad's car required a new transmission, $1,500. Sometimes they framed these as loans, but repayment was never discussed after the money changed hands. My siblings followed suit. When Heather's car broke down 5 years ago, she called me crying from the mechanic's shop. The repair would cost $1,200, and she had less than $100 in her checking account. I transferred the money immediately, and she promised to pay me back $50 per paycheck. I received exactly one payment before she quit that job, and the debt was never mentioned again. Brian's financial emergencies typically involved rent. He'd call, explaining that his roommate moved out unexpectedly or a client payment hadn't come through, and he was facing eviction. The first few times, I lectured him about responsibility before sending the money. Eventually, I skipped the lecture and just made the transfer. It was easier than listening to him promise to do better next time. Beyond these emergencies, I funded countless family celebrations. I paid for Mom and Dad's 30th anniversary dinner at an upscale restaurant, complete with gifts for everyone. I covered the security deposit on Heather's apartment when she finally moved out of our parents' house at 26. I bought Brian a professional camera when he decided photography might be his calling. It wasn't, and the camera was sold within months. For our parents' 40th anniversary 2 years ago, I organized and paid for a weekend getaway to Chicago. I booked a nice hotel, made dinner reservations at their favorite type of restaurant, and arranged tickets to a Broadway show. They seemed genuinely grateful, and for once, I felt truly appreciated. That weekend stands out because it's one of the few times my financial support was met with proper gratitude. More often, my contributions were acknowledged briefly before becoming the new expectation. The dynamic shifted subtly over the years from "Brooke is helping us out" to "Brooke will handle it," as if my financial support was a foregone conclusion rather than a generous choice. I've calculated that over the past decade, I've given or loaned my family more than $43,000 that was never repaid. That doesn't include gifts for birthdays and holidays or picking up checks when we go out to dinner, which is always expected. As my resentment grew, I found myself pulling away emotionally while continuing to provide financial support. I'd send money but find excuses to miss family gatherings. I'd help with bills but let their calls go to voicemail. It was a strange paradox. I kept giving financially while withdrawing personally. Looking back, I realize I was trapped in a cycle that I helped create. By consistently being the financial safety net, I'd made myself indispensable in one way but invisible in another. They needed my money but didn't seem to need or want my presence. And yet, I kept hoping that the next generous act would finally make them see me, appreciate me, and treat me as an equal member of the family rather than a walking ATM. That hope is what led me to plan the family vacation, what I thought would be a reset button for our relationships. Instead, it became the most painful lesson in how my family really saw me. The idea for a family reunion vacation came to me in January last year, as we were all struggling with the isolation of pandemic life. We'd been reduced to occasional Zoom calls that felt awkward and forced. Mom would dominate the conversation with neighborhood gossip, Dad would complain about politics, and my siblings would make brief appearances before finding excuses to log off. I missed the connection we once had, however imperfect it might have been. One particularly cold Michigan evening, as I scrolled through Instagram and saw people vacationing in places where COVID restrictions had eased, I thought about how wonderful it would be to get the whole family together somewhere warm and beautiful. Somewhere we could reconnect, make new memories, and perhaps establish a healthier dynamic. I started researching destinations that night. Florida seemed ideal: warm weather, beautiful beaches, and easily accessible by direct flights from Michigan. I considered hotels but quickly realized that a rental house would provide more space for everyone to spread out and opportunities for family meals and game nights. Over the next few weeks, I spent hours browsing rental listings, comparing amenities, and reading reviews. I created a spreadsheet to track options, considering everyone's preferences. Mom gets sunburned easily, so a place with good shade was essential. Dad loves fishing, so proximity to a fishing spot was important. Heather has a 5-year-old daughter, Lily, so we needed child-friendly features. Brian is always looking for great photo backgrounds for his social media, so scenic views were a must. After narrowing down to 3 options, I sent the listings to our family group chat, asking for input. The response was enthusiastic. Mom called me immediately, excited about the prospect of a beach vacation. "It's been so long since we've all been together somewhere nice," she said. Dad texted that he was already researching fishing charters in the area. Heather sent a string of beach and sun emojis, adding that Lily would be thrilled to build sandcastles. Even Brian seemed genuinely interested, asking about Wi-Fi speeds and nearby restaurants. With their input, I settled on a beautiful 5-bedroom house in Destin with direct beach access, a private pool, and a spacious deck overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. The price was steep, $5,800 for a week, but I justified it as an investment in our family bonds. I put down the full amount as a deposit, planning to ask everyone to contribute what they could toward activities and food once we arrived. Deep down, I knew most of the cost would fall to me, but I convinced myself it would be worth it. I booked the house for the second week of June, giving everyone plenty of time to request vacation days from work. I created a dedicated group chat for vacation planning, where I shared links to local attractions, restaurant recommendations, and packing suggestions. I even made a shared Google Doc with a rough itinerary, leaving plenty of room for spontaneity but ensuring we wouldn't miss any must-do activities. As spring arrived, my excitement grew. I ordered personalized beach towels for everyone as a surprise. I researched and booked a sunset dolphin cruise for our third evening. I found a photographer who could take family photos on the beach, our first professional family photos in over a decade. I arranged for welcome baskets to be placed in each bedroom, filled with sunscreen, local snacks, and personalized water bottles. Taking time off work was a significant step for me. In 7 years at my firm, I'd never taken more than 3 consecutive days off. I was known for working through holidays and covering for colleagues during their vacations. Requesting an entire week raised eyebrows among my team, but my boss Rachel seemed pleased that I was finally prioritizing personal time. "You've earned this, Brooke," she said when approving my request. "The firm won't collapse without you for a week." As June approached, I went shopping for new vacation clothes, something I rarely do for myself. I bought 2 new swimsuits, casual sundresses, and comfortable sandals. I even splurged on a wide-brimmed hat and designer sunglasses. For once, I wanted to feel stylish and carefree, not the responsible, practical Brooke everyone was used to seeing. I downloaded beach reads to my Kindle, created vacation playlists, and even practiced making tropical cocktails I thought everyone would enjoy on the deck at sunset. I envisioned late-night conversations with my siblings where we'd finally talk about real things, not just surface-level updates. I imagined early morning walks on the beach with Mom, rebuilding the closeness we'd had when I was young. I pictured teaching Lily, my niece, to swim in the ocean, creating the kind of aunt-niece bond I'd always wanted. This vacation represented more than just a week at the beach. It was my attempt to rewrite our family dynamic, to transition from Brooke the provider to simply Brooke the daughter/sister/aunt. I hoped that sharing beautiful experiences in a stunning setting might help my family see me as a person to be included rather than a resource to be tapped. The weeks leading up to the vacation were filled with increasing anticipation. Mom called regularly to discuss what she was packing or what groceries we should buy when we arrived. Dad sent articles about the best fishing spots in Destin. Heather shared links to beach toys she was getting for Lily. Even Brian seemed invested, suggesting restaurants he'd found on social media. For the first time in years, I felt truly connected to my family. We were collaborating on something positive instead of dealing with a financial crisis. I allowed myself to believe that this vacation could be transformative for all of us, that we might return with not just photos and souvenirs but a renewed appreciation for each other. I never imagined that this vacation I'd poured my heart, time, and money into would become the most painful illustration of how little my presence actually mattered to my family. 2 weeks before our scheduled departure to Florida, I was wrapping up a regular Tuesday at the office when my boss Rachel appeared in my doorway, her expression unusually tense. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, closing the door behind her before I could even answer. Rachel explained that the Peterson audit, our firm's largest client account, had some serious discrepancies that needed immediate attention. Peterson Industries was a manufacturing company that had been with our firm for over 15 years, and their annual audit was typically straightforward. This year, however, their new CFO had implemented a different accounting system mid-year, and the transition had created inconsistencies that were raising red flags. The SEC filing deadline is in 3 weeks, Rachel explained. We need someone who knows Peterson's history to sort through this mess quickly, and you're the only senior manager who's worked on their account for the past 5 years. My stomach dropped. I knew immediately what this meant for my vacation plans. I hate to ask this, Brooke, Rachel continued, confirming my fears, but we need you to lead this emergency audit team. It means long hours for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I sat there silently, calculating dates in my head. Our vacation was scheduled to begin in exactly 14 days. The audit would likely consume at least that much time, if not more. What about my vacation? I asked, already knowing the answer. We're supposed to leave for Florida on the 12th. Rachel's expression softened with genuine regret. I wouldn't ask if there were any other option. Peterson represents 20% of our annual revenue. If we mess this up or miss their filing deadline, we could lose them as a client. The weight of professional responsibility pressed down on me. I thought about the 5 junior accountants who worked under me, whose jobs partially depended on keeping major clients like Peterson. I thought about Rachel, who had always supported my career advancement and had approved countless flexible schedules so I could handle family emergencies over the years. Can I think about it overnight? I asked, needing time to process this disruption to plans I'd spent months perfecting. Of course, Rachel said, but we need to assemble the team by tomorrow afternoon. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, trying to sort through my options. I could refuse to postpone my vacation, but that would likely damage my professional reputation and possibly my career trajectory at the firm. I could try to join my family late, perhaps missing just the first few days of vacation, but the Peterson audit timeline made even that uncertain. The responsible choice was clear, as it always seemed to be in my life. I would have to postpone my vacation plans and hope my family would understand. I called my parents that night, explaining the situation in detail. I emphasized that I wasn't canceling the vacation, just postponing it. We could reschedule for July or August, when the audit would be complete and I could fully relax and enjoy our time together. Mom's initial response seemed understanding. Oh, honey, that's disappointing, but of course you have to handle this work emergency. Your job is important. Dad chimed in from the extension phone, those big clients pay your salary. You can't just leave them hanging. Their responses were reasonable, which eased some of my anxiety. I explained that the beach house had a flexible rebooking policy, and I could transfer our deposit to new dates. Let's look at rescheduling for late July, I suggested. Everyone should check their calendars, and we can pick new dates in the next few days. We'll have to see, Mom said vaguely. Your father has that fishing tournament in July, and Heather might be starting that new job she interviewed for. I noticed the lack of commitment but attributed it to the sudden change in plans. Just let me know what dates work soon, so I can rebook before someone else takes the house, I said. The next day, I called the property management company and explained my situation. Fortunately, they were understanding and agreed to hold our deposit for a future booking. I texted the family group chat with this update and again asked everyone to check their availability for July. The responses were sparse and non-committal. Brian sent a thumbs-up emoji. Heather said she'd check her schedule. My parents didn't respond at all. Over the next few days, I tried to pin everyone down on new dates, but they all had reasons why various weeks wouldn't work. Dad's fishing tournament. Heather's potential new job. Brian's vague commitments. Mom's garden club activities. It was frustrating but not entirely surprising given my family's general disorganization. Eventually, I stopped pressing for immediate answers and focused on the Peterson audit. As Rachel had predicted, it was a mess that required my full attention. I assembled a team of our best staff accountants and dove into the tangled records. The next 10 days became a blur of 14-hour workdays, takeout dinners at my desk, and falling into bed exhausted only to wake up and do it all again. I was working so intensely that I barely had time to text my family. Our vacation planning chat fell silent. I assumed everyone was disappointed about the postponement and giving me space to focus on work. In retrospect, their silence had a very different explanation. The audit consumed my life completely. I canceled my hair appointment, returned the new swimsuits I'd bought, and even forgot to water my houseplants for so long that my neighbor had to rescue them. My sole focus became finding and resolving the discrepancies in the Peterson files before the SEC deadline. On what would have been the second day of our vacation, I had a brief moment of sadness while eating lunch at my desk. I pulled up the beach house listing on my phone and looked at the photos of the beautiful ocean view, imagining the relaxation and family bonding I was missing. Then I returned to my spreadsheets and pushed the thought away. I told myself we would still have our special family time, just a bit later than planned. The postponement was disappointing but unavoidable. The important thing was that we would reschedule and still enjoy the perfect family vacation I had envisioned. I had no idea that at that very moment, my family was already at that beach house, enjoying the sunset from the deck, taking photos with the personalized beach towels I had ordered, and opening the welcome baskets I had arranged, all without me. After 16 grueling days, the Peterson audit was finally complete. Our team had identified the discrepancies, corrected the errors, and prepared all the documentation for the SEC filing with 2 days to spare. Rachel was ecstatic, the client was relieved, and I was completely exhausted but proud of what we'd accomplished. That Friday afternoon, Rachel insisted I take the following Monday off to recover from the marathon work session. "You've earned it, Brooke. Go home, get some rest, and don't think about work until Tuesday." On my drive home, my thoughts immediately turned to rescheduling our family vacation. Now that the audit crisis was resolved, I could focus on finding new dates that worked for everyone. I was determined to salvage the special trip I'd planned so carefully. As soon as I got home, I sent a message to the family group chat. "Good news! The audit is finally finished. I'm ready to look at new dates for our beach trip. Can everyone send me their availability for the next few months? The sooner we rebook, the better our chances of getting a nice place." I waited for responses, but none came immediately. This wasn't unusual, my family was never prompt with replies. I decided to take a long shower and order takeout while I waited to hear back. 2 hours later, still no responses. I found this odd since at least one family member was typically online on Friday evenings. I sent a follow-up text. "Hello? Anyone there? Really hoping we can reschedule soon while summer rates are still available." Another hour passed with no replies. Growing concerned, I tried calling my mom, but the call went straight to voicemail. I tried my dad with the same result. I even tried Heather and Brian, but no one was picking up. A knot of worry formed in my stomach. It was unusual for everyone to be unreachable simultaneously. Had something happened? Was there a family emergency no one had told me about? Just as I was about to call my aunt to check if she knew anything, my phone chimed with a notification. Heather had added me to a group chat called Beach Week Fun. Before I could even process why there was a separate beach-related group chat I hadn't known about, my screen flooded with photos. Dozens of them, all with timestamps from the past 5 days. My father fishing off a charter boat, proudly holding up a large catch. My mother relaxing on a lounge chair on a familiar-looking deck, the turquoise Gulf waters stretching out behind her. Brian taking a selfie on the same white sand beach I'd seen in the rental listing photos. Heather and her daughter Lily building an elaborate sandcastle. My parents, siblings, niece, and even my brother's girlfriend Lindsay all posed together for a sunset photo on the deck of the beach house, the exact house I had booked and paid for. I stared at the images in disbelief, my brain struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. They couldn't possibly be at our beach house right now. Our trip had been postponed. I hadn't rebooked yet. With shaking hands, I zoomed in on one of the photos. In the background was the distinctive blue and white striped wallpaper of the master bedroom from the listing photos. Another photo showed the unique driftwood coffee table I had admired in the living room pictures. It was undeniable. My family was at the beach house I had booked, during the original week I had planned, without me. As I scrolled through more photos in shocked silence, I spotted something that made my stomach lurch. In a picture of Lily jumping on one of the beds, I could clearly see one of the welcome baskets I had arranged, the personalized water bottle with Lily's name visible among the contents. The property management company had placed my welcome baskets exactly as I'd requested. My family was enjoying all the special touches I had planned. Without me. My hands trembling, I called my mother again. This time, she picked up on the third ring. "Hello?" Her voice was relaxed, with the sounds of laughter and waves in the background. "Mom," I said, my voice barely steady, "where are you right now?" "Oh, hi honey. We're in Florida, at the beach house. The weather is absolutely perfect today." "The beach house," I repeated, my voice hollow. "The one I booked for our family vacation. The one I paid for." There was a brief pause before she responded with casual cheerfulness that felt like a slap in the face. "Yes, that's right. The whole family went last week. We didn't want the deposit to go to waste when you couldn't come." "You went without me?" I asked, still struggling to believe what was happening. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Well, you were so busy with that audit thing. We didn't want to bother you while you were working so hard," she explained, as if this were the most reasonable decision in the world. "Besides, you always say you're too busy with your important job for family stuff." I had never said any such thing. "But I was going to reschedule," I said, my voice cracking. "I told everyone we would pick new dates when my work crisis was over." "Oh, honey, you know how hard it is to coordinate everyone's schedules. We already had this week free, and the deposit was paid for." It just made sense. In the background, I could hear my father calling for her to come look at something. "I have to go, Brooke. Your dad found a hermit crab on the beach. We'll tell you all about the trip when we get back." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me sitting alone in my living room, surrounded by the work files I'd brought home, staring at my phone in disbelief. The physical reaction hit me suddenly, a wave of nausea so strong I had to rush to the bathroom. I sat on the cold tile floor, shaking and fighting back tears. The betrayal was so complete, so casual, that it took my breath away. As I sat there, my phone continued to chime with notifications as more photos appeared in the group chat. My family enjoying the dolphin cruise I had researched and booked. Brian's girlfriend posing in front of the sunset. Lily wearing the beach hat I had ordered specially for her. They hadn't just gone without me, they had taken every single experience I had planned and enjoyed it without a second thought about my absence. No one had called to say they missed me. No one had sent a private message saying they wished I could be there. They had simply replaced me and proceeded as if I'd never been part of the plan at all. I drove home from work in a daze, barely registering the traffic around me. Once inside my condo, I curled up on my couch and let the tears come. Years of being taken for granted culminated in this perfect symbol of my place in the family, the provider who wasn't necessary beyond what she could give. Throughout the evening, more photos appeared in the chat. Everyone was having the time of their lives, completely unbothered by my absence. The final blow came when I saw photos of them all dressed nicely on the beach. They had even gone ahead with the family photo shoot I had arranged, simply doing it without me. I was not just excluded from the vacation. I was being erased from the family narrative entirely. I spent the weekend in a fog of hurt and anger, cycling between tears, rage, and disbelief. On Saturday, I turned off my phone, unable to bear seeing more photos of my family enjoying the vacation I had funded. I alternated between lying in bed staring at the ceiling and pacing my condo, rehearsing confrontational speeches I wasn't sure I'd ever deliver. By Sunday evening, my initial shock had hardened into something more resolute. I decided I would not let this betrayal go unaddressed. After years of swallowing my feelings for the sake of family harmony, I needed to speak up. Not in anger, but with clarity about how deeply they had hurt me. Monday morning, the day Rachel had given me off to recover from the audit, I turned my phone back on. The screen immediately lit up with notifications: 37 new photos in the Beach Week Fun chat, 5 missed calls from my mother, likely after she realized I'd seen the chat, and a group text from my father announcing they had arrived home safely, with a cheerful "can't wait to show everyone our pictures and souvenirs." I took a deep breath and composed a message to our regular family group chat. I need to speak with everyone about what happened with the beach vacation. Can we do a family Zoom call tonight at 7 p.m? It's important. The responses trickled in throughout the morning, ranging from confused to defensive. Dad, what's there to talk about? We had a great time. Should have been there, kiddo. Mom, we can tell you all about the trip tonight if you want. Heather, I have plans tonight but I guess I can cancel them. Brian, do we have to do this on a call? Can't we just text? I responded simply, this needs to be a conversation. 7 p.m. I'll send the Zoom link. At 6:55 that evening, I sat at my dining table with a glass of water, a notepad filled with talking points, and a knot in my stomach. I had spent the day organizing my thoughts and practicing what I wanted to say. I was determined to remain calm and articulate, even though part of me wanted to scream and cry. One by one, my family members joined the call. Dad and Mom together on their living room couch, Heather in her car, apparently she hadn't actually cancelled her plans but was joining from a parking lot, and Brian from his apartment, looking annoyed and distracted. Thanks for joining, I began once everyone was present. I wanted to talk about what happened with the vacation. We brought you a souvenir. Mom interrupted, holding up a shell necklace. It's just like the one Heather got, so you'll match. I took a deep breath. That's not why I called. I need to talk about the fact that you all went on the vacation I planned and paid for without telling me. We told you as soon as you asked, Dad said defensively. It's not like we were hiding it. You didn't tell me you were going. You didn't ask if it was okay to use the house I paid for. You didn't include me in any of the planning to go during the original week. I found out because Heather accidentally added me to the group chat. We didn't want to bother you while you were so busy with work, Mom said, repeating her earlier explanation. You're always telling us how important your job is. That's not true, I said firmly. I have never chosen work over family when I had a choice. This time, I had a genuine work emergency that could have affected my entire career. And even then, I didn't cancel the vacation, I tried to reschedule it. It's really hard to coordinate everyone's schedules, Heather chimed in. Lily starts day camp in July, and I might be starting a new job. The interview you had in April? The one you didn't get? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. You told me that 3 weeks ago. Heather looked away from the camera. Well, I might have another interview coming up. I redirected the conversation. The point is, none of you considered waiting for me. None of you thought that maybe the person who planned and paid for the entire vacation should be included in it. It was just practical, Dad argued. The deposit was paid, everyone had already taken time off work. It would have been wasteful not to go. Practical? I repeated. Was it practical to use the welcome baskets I ordered with personal notes from me? Was it practical to go on the dolphin cruise I booked as a surprise? Was it practical to take family photos without a family member? A brief silence fell over the call. Look, Brian said finally, I get that you're upset, but isn't this an overreaction? So we went to the beach house without you. It's not like we excluded you on purpose. You couldn't come, we could. Simple as that. His dismissive attitude broke something in me. The calm, measured approach I'd planned began to crumble. This isn't just about the vacation, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts. This is about a pattern that's been happening for years. I am always the one giving in this family, and you are always the ones taking. That's not fair, Mom protested. Isn't it? Let me ask you something. When was the last time any of you helped me when I needed it? When I was working 70-hour weeks on this audit, did anyone offer to drop off a meal? When I had surgery last year, who came to help me while I recovered? Uncomfortable glances were exchanged. The answer, of course, was no one. I'd hired a service to deliver meals during the audit. After my minor surgery, I'd taken Ubers to follow-up appointments because everyone was too busy to drive me. I have supported this family financially for years, I continued. Do you have any idea how much money I've given all of you over the past decade? Oh, so now you're keeping score? Heather said defensively. Yes, actually, I am. I reached for my notepad. I've gone through my records. In the past 10 years, I have given or loaned this family $43,822. That doesn't include gifts, dinners out that I always pay for, or this vacation. Their shocked expressions might have been satisfying under different circumstances. That can't be right, Dad said, looking genuinely surprised. It is right. I'm an accountant, Dad. I keep records. I began listing specific instances: the mortgage payments during the recession, Mom's dental work, Heather's car repairs, Brian's rent emergencies, the anniversary trip to Chicago. As I spoke, I could see their faces changing, moving from defensive to uncomfortable as the reality of their behavior began to sink in. We always planned to pay you back, Brian said weakly. No, you didn't, I replied. Not once in 10 years has anyone repaid a single loan without me asking repeatedly, and even then, it rarely happens. But this isn't even about the money. It's about respect and appreciation. We appreciate you. Mom insisted. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you appreciate my wallet but not my presence. I spent months planning that vacation. I was excited about spending time with all of you. I ordered personalized gifts, planned special activities, and paid for everything. And when I couldn't go because of work, you all went without a second thought about including me. We sent you pictures, Dad offered lamely. You didn't send me anything. Heather accidentally added me to the chat. If that hadn't happened, when were you planning to tell me? No one had an answer for that. The worst part is, I continued, my voice breaking slightly, not one of you thought about how this would make me feel. Not one of you texted me saying you missed me or wished I was there. You just replaced me and had your perfect family vacation as if I didn't matter at all. Tears were now streaming down my face, but I made no move to wipe them away. For once, I wanted my family to see my pain without me trying to hide it or make it easier for them. Brooke, honey, of course you matter, Mom said, looking distressed. We love you. Love isn't just words, Mom. It's actions. And your actions showed me exactly where I stand in this family. The call fell silent. My brother, typically quick with a joke or deflection, stared uncomfortably at his camera. Heather looked away, fiddling with her car keys. My parents exchanged glances that contained a conversation I wasn't privy to. What do you want us to do? Dad finally asked. We can't change what happened. I want you to understand what you did and how it made me feel. I want you to recognize that this isn't an isolated incident but part of a pattern of taking me for granted. And I want things to change going forward. Of course things will change, Mom said quickly. We feel terrible about this, don't we? She looked around at the others, who nodded with varying degrees of conviction. But I could already sense the familiar pattern reasserting itself. Quick apologies followed by an expectation to move on and return to the status quo. Nothing would really change unless I forced the issue. I need time, I said firmly. I'm not ready to just forget this and pretend everything is fine. I need space to think about what kind of relationship I want with all of you going forward. What does that mean? Heather asked, alarm in her voice. It means I'm taking a step back. No more financial bailouts. No more being the family problem solver. I need to establish some boundaries, and you all need to learn to respect them. But what if we need help? Brian asked, the implication clear. Then you'll need to figure it out without me for a while, I replied, surprising myself with my resolve. I've enabled this dynamic for too long, and it's not healthy for any of us. I could see the panic settling in as they realized the Bank of Brook might be permanently closed. It was telling that their first concern was about losing access to my financial support rather than how to repair our relationship. I think that's all I have to say for now, I concluded, suddenly exhausted by the emotional toll of the conversation. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. Before anyone could protest, I ended the call. The silence in my apartment was immediate and overwhelming. I sat at my dining table for a long time, letting the tears flow freely as years of suppressed hurt finally found release. I had no idea what would happen next with my family, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was choosing myself rather than sacrificing my needs for everyone else's. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. The week following my confrontation with my family was one of the most emotionally turbulent periods of my life. I cycled through anger, grief, doubt, and occasional moments of empowerment that would quickly dissolve into uncertainty. Had I overreacted? Was I being too harsh? Would this permanent rift in my family be my fault? I called in sick to work for the first time in years, unable to focus on spreadsheets and client meetings while my personal life was in such disarray. Rachel was understanding, having witnessed my exhaustion after the Peterson audit and having no idea about the family drama that had compounded it. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members, ranging from apologetic to defensive to manipulative. Mom sent lengthy texts about how much they all loved me and how they never meant to hurt me. Dad was more direct, "We messed up, but family forgives. Let's move past this." Heather fluctuated between genuine seeming remorse and passive-aggressive comments about how my abandonment was affecting Lily. Brian mostly sent memes, his typical approach to diffusing tension, though they felt tone-deaf given the circumstances. I read everything but responded to nothing. I needed clarity before engaging further, and that clarity wasn't coming from sitting alone in my apartment ruminating. On the third day of my self-imposed exile, I called my best friend Ashley. We'd been friends since college, and she knew my family dynamics better than anyone outside the situation. She came over that evening with wine, takeout, and no-nonsense advice. "They took advantage of you," she said bluntly after I recounted the whole story. Again. But this time it was so blatant even they couldn't deny it. "But am I overreacting?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "It's just a vacation." Ashley fixed me with a look that immediately made me feel foolish. "Brooke, it's not just a vacation. It's years of them treating you like an ATM with legs. It's them showing you, in the clearest possible way, that they value what you provide more than they value your presence. You're not overreacting. If anything, you've been underreacting for years." Her validation loosened something in my chest. I'd been gaslighting myself, minimizing my own feelings just as my family had always done. "What do I do now?" I asked. "You've already taken the first step by setting a boundary," Ashley said. "Now you have to maintain it, which will be harder. And maybe you should talk to someone professional about this. I love you, but this is beyond friend-level advice." The next day, I called Dr. Martinez, a therapist I'd seen briefly 2 years earlier for work-related stress. Fortunately, she had an opening that week due to a cancellation. Walking into her office on Friday afternoon felt like entering a sanctuary. The familiar calm of the space, with its soft lighting and comfortable chairs, immediately lowered my shoulders from where they'd been tensed around my ears all week. "It's been a while," Dr. Martinez said warmly as I settled in. "What brings you back?" I gave her the condensed version of recent events, trying to stick to facts rather than emotions. But when I got to the part about discovering my family at the beach house through accidental photos, my voice cracked. "They were using the welcome baskets I ordered," I said, the detail that somehow hurt the most. "With personal notes I wrote for each of them." Dr. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "That must have felt like a profound betrayal." "It did." "It does," I corrected myself. "But I keep wondering if I'm being dramatic. It's just a vacation, right? Is it just a vacation? She asked, her tone suggesting she already knew my answer. No, I admitted. It's a pattern. It's always been this way, but I've never confronted it so directly before. Over the next hour, Dr. Martinez guided me through an exploration of my family dynamics that went deeper than I'd ever gone before. We discussed my role as the responsible one, the financial provider, the problem solver. When did you first take on this role in your family? She asked. I thought back. I was 14 when Dad lost his job during a company downsizing. Mom fell into a pretty severe depression. I started taking care of my siblings, making sure they had meals and got to school. I got my first job the next year. That's a lot of responsibility for a teenager, Dr. Martinez observed. Someone had to step up, I said, repeating the phrase I'd told myself for decades. Did they? Or could the adults in your life have found other solutions? The question caught me off guard. I'd never considered that there might have been alternatives to me becoming the family caretaker. I suppose my grandparents could have helped more, I said slowly. Or my parents could have sought assistance programs. I never thought about it that way. Children often internalize family problems as their responsibility to fix, Dr. Martinez explained. Especially oldest children. And when they're successful at helping, it becomes their identity and role. That resonated deeply. My identity had become so wrapped up in being the family provider that I didn't know who I was without that role. The vacation situation triggered you so strongly because it exemplifies the core wound in your family relationships, she continued. You give and give, often at personal sacrifice, and they take without genuine appreciation for you as a person, separate from what you provide. Tears formed in my eyes as her words crystallized feelings I'd never been able to articulate. The question now, Dr. Martinez said gently, is what kind of relationship do you want with your family moving forward? What would healthy boundaries look like for you? It was a question I couldn't answer immediately. I committed to weekly sessions with Dr. Martinez to work through these issues and discover what healthy boundaries might look like in my specific situation. As I left her office, I felt lighter than I had all week. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but I had permission to prioritize my own well-being in a way I never had before. The next few weeks were a period of intense self-reflection. I followed Dr. Martinez's suggestion to journal about my feelings and memories of family dynamics throughout my life. Patterns emerged that were both illuminating and painful to recognize. I remembered how, at 16, I'd canceled plans with friends to help Mom organize a garage sale to raise money for Heather's dance recital costume. How at 22, I'd used my first work bonus to pay off Dad's overdue car loan rather than taking the trip to Europe I'd dreamed about. How at 27, I'd co-signed Brian's apartment lease when no one else would rent to him due to his poor credit history, putting my own credit at risk. In each instance, my sacrifice had been acknowledged briefly before being forgotten, while any time I couldn't or didn't help was met with guilt trips and passive-aggressive comments about my priorities. I wrote letters I never intended to send, expressing years of hurt and resentment. I cried over them, tore some up, saved others. The process was cathartic in ways I hadn't expected. During this period, I maintained minimal contact with my family. I sent brief texts letting them know I was safe but needed time. Their responses evolved from defensive and hurt to more respectful of my boundaries as the weeks passed. Ashley checked in regularly, providing a sounding board and reality check when I started to slip back into patterns of guilt and self-doubt. Your feelings are valid, she would remind me. You deserve reciprocity in your relationships. Reciprocity. The word became a touchstone for me. I wasn't expecting a dollar-for-dollar return on financial support, but I deserved emotional investment equivalent to what I gave. I deserved to be considered, included, and valued for who I was, not just what I could provide. A month after the confrontation, I realized I had been practicing something Dr. Martinez called radical acceptance. I accepted that my family might never fully understand how deeply they had hurt me. I accepted that they might never change in all the ways I hoped they would. I accepted that establishing and maintaining boundaries would be an ongoing process, not a one-time declaration. Most importantly, I accepted that I was worthy of respect and consideration, regardless of whether I was financially supporting someone or not. That acceptance didn't erase the pain, but it created space for something new to emerge, a sense of self that wasn't defined solely by my usefulness to others. I began to rediscover parts of myself that had been neglected for years while I was busy taking care of everyone else. I joined a local hiking group, something I'd always wanted to do but had never found the time for. I reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with. I started taking a pottery class on Wednesday evenings, enjoying the meditative process of creating something with my hands after days spent working with numbers on screens. Slowly, cautiously, I began to reimagine what my life and my family relationships could look like with healthy boundaries in place. I wasn't ready to cut ties completely. Despite everything, I loved my family. But I was ready to insist on a relationship built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was walking it on my own terms. 5 weeks after our confrontational Zoom call, my phone rang with my father's number. We had exchanged only brief texts during this period, so seeing his call was surprising. I hesitated before answering, mentally preparing myself for potential guilt-tripping or demands for forgiveness. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Brooke," my father said, his voice lacking its usual confident tone. "I was wondering if you might have time to meet for coffee this week. Just the two of us." His request caught me off guard. In our family, one-on-one conversations about serious matters were rare. Problems were either ignored entirely or addressed in chaotic group settings where it was easy for individuals to deflect and avoid accountability. "What did you have in mind?" I asked, not committing immediately. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "about what you said during our call. About how we've treated you over the years. I'd like to talk to you about it in person, if you're willing." I consulted with Dr. Martinez during our session that week, and she encouraged me to accept the meeting but to go in with clear boundaries and realistic expectations. "This could be a positive step," she said, "but remember that one conversation won't resolve years of unhealthy patterns. Listen to what he has to say, express your feelings honestly, but don't expect immediate transformation." We arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Dad was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He'd remembered how I take mine, a small detail that shouldn't have been surprising but somehow was. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down. He looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his posture less commanding. "I'm listening," I said simply. Dad took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology, Brooke. A real one, not the kind I usually give just to smooth things over." I nodded but remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "When you listed all the ways you've supported this family over the years, it hit me hard. I've always thought of myself as the provider, the head of the family. But the truth is, you've been carrying us for a long time, and I've let it happen because it was easier than facing my own failures." His candor surprised me. My father rarely admitted vulnerability or mistake. "The vacation situation was inexcusable," he continued. "We took advantage of your generosity in the most blatant way possible. And when you called us out on it, my first instinct was to defend and deflect rather than really hear what you were saying. Why do you think that is?" I asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. He considered the question carefully. "Pride, mostly. It's hard for me to admit that my oldest daughter has been more financially responsible and successful than I've been. It's not how I thought things would go." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a sad acceptance. "I never intended to make you feel lesser," I said. "I just wanted to help. I know that. And we took advantage of it, because it was convenient and because it let us avoid facing our own money problems. But that wasn't fair to you." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground we'd never explored together. He shared his feelings of failure during the recession when he couldn't provide for his family. I shared how taking on responsibility so young had shaped my entire identity. We both acknowledged that the pattern had damaged our relationship over time. "I can't speak for your mother or your siblings," Dad said toward the end of our conversation, "but I want you to know that I'm committed to changing how I relate to you. No more expecting financial bailouts. No more taking your generosity for granted." "I appreciate that," I said, feeling cautiously optimistic. "But I need you to understand that actions will matter more than words going forward. Trust has been broken, and it will take time to rebuild it." "I understand," he said, looking me directly in the eyes. "I'm willing to put in that time." As we parted, he hugged me, a real hug, not the quick, perfunctory embraces we usually exchanged. "I love you, Brooke. Not for what you do for us, but for who you are." I'm sorry it took this wake-up call for me to show it properly. That conversation with my father became the first step in a gradual reconstruction of our family relationships. It wasn't quick or easy, and there were setbacks along the way, but it established a new foundation based on honesty that had been missing before. My mother was initially more resistant to change. When I met with her the following week, she fluctuated between genuine remorse and subtle attempts to minimize what had happened. "We just didn't think it through properly," she insisted at one point. "It wasn't malicious." "Intent doesn't negate impact," I replied, quoting a phrase Dr. Martinez had used. "Whether you meant to hurt me or not, the result was the same." It took several conversations before Mom truly began to understand the depth of the wound their actions had caused. A breakthrough came when she asked to see the list of financial support I'd mentioned during our confrontation call. I hesitated but decided transparency might help her grasp the pattern. I showed her the spreadsheet I'd created, listing every loan, gift, and bailout over the years, with dates and amounts. As she scrolled through the document, her expression changed from skeptical to shocked. "I had no idea it was this much," she said quietly. "We really have been taking advantage of you, haven't we?" That acknowledgement opened the door to more honest conversations about expectations and boundaries going forward. My siblings' responses varied. Heather initially maintained that I was overreacting but gradually came to recognize how the family had treated me unfairly. Our relationship began to improve when she stopped asking for money and instead began inviting me to spend time with her and Lily without any financial strings attached. The first real test of our new family dynamic came 3 months after the confrontation, when Heather texted asking if she could borrow $2,000 for car repairs. In the past, I would have transferred the money immediately, perhaps with a mild lecture about saving for emergencies. This time, I took a deep breath and replied, "I'm not in a position to lend money right now." "Have you checked with your credit union about a small personal loan?" My heart raced as I sent the message, anxiety spiking as I waited for her response. I half expected anger or emotional manipulation. Instead, after a brief delay, she replied, "That's a good idea, I'll look into it." "Thanks." That simple exchange felt like a significant victory. I had set a boundary, and Heather had respected it without drama. It was a small step, but an important one. Brian took longer to come around. His financial irresponsibility was more deeply ingrained, and he initially viewed my boundary setting as a personal attack. It wasn't until he faced the consequences of his spending habits without my safety net that he began to make changes. 4 months after our confrontation, he surprised me by inviting me to lunch, and paying for it, a first in our adult relationship. "I want to thank you," he said awkwardly as we ate. "For all the times you've helped me out when I was in a jam. I never really appreciated it before." "What changed?" I asked. "Having to figure things out on my own these past few months," he admitted. "It's been hard, but I'm actually managing. And it made me realize how much I've relied on you as a crutch." It was a more insightful observation than I'd expected from my brother, and it gave me hope that genuine change was possible. 6 months after the beach house incident, my family suggested we try another vacation, this time with everyone contributing equally to the cost and with my full involvement in the planning. I was hesitant but decided it might be a positive step in rebuilding our relationships. We chose a mountain cabin rental for a long weekend, more modest than the beach house but still comfortable for everyone. The planning process was more collaborative this time, with everyone having input on activities and meals. Most significantly, when the time came to pay the deposit, everyone transferred their share promptly without complaints or excuses. It was a tangible demonstration of the new dynamics we were establishing. The weekend itself wasn't perfect. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, and there were moments of tension. But there were also genuine connections that felt different from before. Conversations that went beyond surface-level updates, expressions of appreciation that seemed authentic rather than perfunctory, and a noticeable effort from everyone to ensure I felt included and valued. On our last evening, as we sat around the fire pit roasting marshmallows, Mom raised her mug of hot chocolate and a toast. To Brooke, she said, not for what she does for us, but for who she is and for helping us become better versions of ourselves. The simple acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't about the money I'd provided or the problems I'd solved. It was recognition of my worth as a person, independent of my usefulness, exactly what I'd been seeking all along. Over the following months and years, our family continued to evolve. The changes weren't always linear, and we all occasionally slipped into old patterns that required gentle, or sometimes firm, course corrections. But the fundamental dynamic had shifted toward greater health and reciprocity. My work with Dr. Martinez eventually transitioned from weekly sessions to monthly check-ins and finally to occasional tune-ups when I felt old issues resurfacing. Through therapy, I gained invaluable insights about myself and my patterns in relationships beyond my family. I learned that my worth isn't tied to financial provision or problem-solving. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish but necessary for healthy relationships. I learned to recognize genuine versus transactional connections and to prioritize the former. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting or eliminating all consequences. I could forgive my family for years of taking me for granted while still maintaining firm boundaries to prevent future harm. My relationship with money evolved as well. I continued to be financially responsible, but I became more willing to invest in experiences and opportunities for myself, not just others. I finally took that trip to Europe I'd postponed years earlier. I bought a slightly larger condo with a dedicated space for my growing pottery hobby. I learned that generosity doesn't have to mean self-sacrifice. Looking back on the beach house incident now, I can see it as the painful but necessary catalyst for transformation. Without that blatant illustration of how I was valued, or rather, not valued, in my family, I might have continued in the unhealthy pattern indefinitely, growing increasingly resentful but never addressing the core issues. The journey hasn't been easy, but it has been worthwhile. My relationships with my family members are now built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. We still have disagreements and challenges, but we address them honestly instead of falling into old patterns of avoidance and resentment. I've come to understand that love doesn't come with a price tag, but respect should never be sacrificed at any cost. By valuing myself enough to demand better treatment, I gave my family the opportunity to rise to that standard, and ultimately, that has been a gift to all of us. If you've ever found yourself in a similar situation, always giving while feeling underappreciated, I hope my story encourages you to examine those relationships and consider whether boundaries might actually strengthen rather than damage them. True connection can't exist without mutual respect, and sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do is to stand firm in your worth. I'd love to hear about your experiences with family dynamics and boundary setting in the comments below. Have you ever had to confront loved ones about taking you for granted? What happened? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex family relationships, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you provide.